Get started. I want to thank everyone for attending our webinar this morning. My name is Joseph Krolikowski, and I'd like to welcome you to the ISO 9001-2015 Preparing for a Successful Transition presentation. I'm PJR's Technical Director, and it's my pleasure to have you here today for this presentation. A couple of points that I'd like to make. Everyone is on mute. If you have a question, we do have a question portion on the dashboard. We will definitely make time for as many questions as possible at the conclusion of our presentation. So let's begin with an overview of what our topics are going to be. We're going to be covering where the ISO 9001 and the other standards come from. We're going to discuss why are these things changing all over again. We're going to take a look at the timeline for transition. We're going to highlight the key changes as we presently understand them. We're going to discuss how this is going to impact your current system and give you some planning guidance. And as I said, we will make time for some questions. So let's begin with where these standards come from. ISO is the International Organization for Standardization, and it is a collective made up of numerous international members. Now each standard within ISO's control is assigned a technical committee, and that technical committee is responsible for authorship and for updates and so forth. The technical committee that's been assigned to ISO 9001 is TC 176, and TC 176 has membership from each of the major industrialized nations. It's a large committee, and the U.S. representatives include those from the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI. So why are things changing again? What is promoting this? Well, the ISO recognizes that the needs of the industries that use ISO 9001 have evolved, and they're going to continue to evolve. The standard at this point is over 25 years old. We do have to kind of keep up with the times. There's new types of industries now, and they anticipate there being even more new types of industries in the future. We want to see ISO 9001 continue to grow into more sectors, more industries, for it to be even more utilized than it is now. One of the more important reasons why things are changing is there's a very definite, deliberate effort to simplify the language that's used in order to promote an understanding and to promote consistency within the auditing process and the other processes associated with ISO 9001. Moreover, there's a strong desire to improve the cross-compatibility between the standards. There's a lot of companies out there that want to have more than one certification. One of the more common pairings is ISO 9001 and ISO 14001. There's many other ISO standards out there, of course, and there are companies that sometimes pursue 3 or 4 or even more certifications, and there is a strong desire to streamline that process and to make it as simple as it can possibly be for companies that want to achieve multiple certifications. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at the timeline. We are kind of in the middle of the timeline at this point in terms of the key dates and how this process is going to roll out. So we're going to take a look on the next 2 slides here at what the key dates are that have passed and what is in the future. Let's start with the past. In June of 2013, the committee draft for the new standard was issued. That, of course, was a very early draft. It was intended to get some discussion going. That, in turn, led to what we call the DIS, or Draft International Standard. That was published in May of 2013, or excuse me, May of 2014. And that's the stage that we are at present, is the draft or DIS standard. Now going forward, we are projecting July of 2015 is going to be the publication date for the FDIS, or Final Draft International Standard. From there, that will proceed, we're projecting rather quickly, into September of 2015 with the publication of the actual standard, the ISO 9001 2015 standard. And then going quite a bit into the future here, September of 2018, all of the ISO 9001-2008 certified companies will have successfully transitioned to the new standard at that point. Now, all of these dates that you have on your screen right now, these are projected dates. These are not definite dates. I would call them probable dates at this point. Moreover, the September 2015 publication date, as I said, it is likely but not definite. Part of what is going to potentially affect it is the, at present, refusal of the automotive industry to adopt the new standard. This may but probably will not delay the publication. Obviously, the transition timeline does not take hold until the new standard is published. So if it's published in October of 2015, well then the cutoff is October 2018, obviously. One thing that is not at present clear is whether it's going to be necessary for additional audit time to be added for the transition process. That's still very much being worked out. The other thing I will mention is that the September 2018 cutoff, this is likely going to mean that registrars like PJR will have to internally establish a cutoff date for clients to do their transition audit. Now those arrangements are going to vary from case to case, and they may still be subject to some oversight and some regulation from the higher authorities. So let's talk a little bit about what the key changes are going to be. ISO 9001-2015 is going to be among the first of the ISO standards to make use of the standardized structure that is known as Annex SL. Now Annex SL has some other names that it's known by, the high-level outline Annex XL. Let's take just a minute here and dig into what is Annex SL and what is this all about. Annex SL was published in 2012. It was the output of a special committee, the JTCG, and what Annex SL represents is it's a blueprint, a 10-section blueprint for the authorship of the ISO family of standards. Among other things, it promotes common terms, core definitions. Again, this whole idea of these numerous standards being cross-compatible. That's very important to the ISO and part of what they're striving for with this aggressive overhaul. Now, the eventual plan for Annex SL is that it will be utilized for all of the ISO standards by sometime in 2016 or 2017. Obviously, that's a lot of standards, and each one has to be kind of worked out in terms of what its timeline is going to be. But again, though, the idea here is cross-compatibility and ensuring a consistent approach. So let's take a look at the 10-section structure and how this is laid out. Now, Annex SL has first these first three sections: scope, normative reference, term and definitions. These sections, as we presently understand them, are non-auditable. These are explanatory sections. The auditable content then begins in Section 4, much in the same way that it does in ISO 9001-2008. Section 4 is called the context of the organization. Some of the higher level information is in here: the scope of the system, what's required for a system, the context of the organization. That gives way then to Section 5. We've got a new requirement here called leadership. We're going to be getting into some of the nuance differences in here. This is where you're defining responsibilities and authorities, establishment of a quality policy, general commitments on the part of leadership, and so forth. In Section 6, we have the much talked about risk management requirement. We're going to be digging into that in a little bit. Establishment of objectives, planning for changes, and so forth. Then we get into Section 7 and 8. These are getting into kind of the heart of the standard here. Resources and providing for competency, communication amongst the members of the organization, documented information. You'll make note of that. We're going to be getting back to that as well. And then in Section 8 we have operation, and this is going to look a lot like Section 7 from ISO 9001-2008. We have planning and external provisions and development of goods and production of goods and so forth. You'll note the verbiage goods and services. That's going to be coming up later in our presentation as well. Section 9 is called performance evaluation. A lot of what was in Section 8 from ISO 9001-2008 has made its way here. Management review is here from Section 5. And then finally we have improvement, which is non-conformity and corrective action, and then the overall idea of improvement. So we've added 2 sections, but as you're going to see, the content here is going to look very familiar as we continue to dig through this. So let's talk about these key changes. Let's make sure that we're all on the same page with what's new and how this is going to impact all of you within your companies. First of all, ISO 9001 is going to be a much larger document than it was previously. But it's going to be much larger because it is combining content that was separately found before in the 9000 and 9004 standards. The terms and definitions, these were found in ISO 9000-2005. Numerous definitions, sanctioned definitions, several of which have been changed or updated. The quality management principles, these were formerly found in the ISO 9004 document. There are 7 of them now. And they've been supplemented with rationale statements. These are statements that are intended to help explain the intent behind the management principle. All of this, as I said, has greatly increased the size of the standard itself. The DIS is now over 50 pages. However, only 17 of those pages represent auditable or certifiable content, and that's very similar to the size of the 9001-2008 standard at present. So let's talk about risk. I know there's been a lot of cross-discussion on the internet, a lot of speculation on what risk is going to be all about and how this is going to play out in the standard. Let's have a look at this. First of all, emphasize that risk is being viewed as a system-wide strategy. Those of you that have had systems that are old enough to remember when we transitioned from ISO 1994 to ISO 2000, the new requirement at that time was continual improvement, and the idea was that continual improvement was something that crossed over into multiple areas and had a system-wide impact. That's kind of how they're approaching risk management in this new 2015 standard. However, you don't have to have a formal or documented risk management process. You need to be able to show that you have a risk management activity, but it doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be something dramatically different from whatever you are doing to manage risk at present. Let's take a look at the requirement the way it's been written. It's in 2 clauses primarily. Clause 611 states that when planning for the system, the organization shall consider the issues referred to in 4.1 and requirements referred to in 4.2 and determine risks and opportunities that need to be addressed. First, to give assurance that the system can achieve its results, to prevent or reduce undesired effects, and to achieve continual improvement. There's a lot in here that should look very, very familiar to you. There's elements of preventive action in here. There's elements of, obviously, continual improvement in here. There's planning going on. There's analysis going on. If we continue at 612, it states you will plan actions to address the risks and opportunities. You will plan how to integrate and implement those actions into your system, and you will evaluate the effectiveness of those actions. Actions taken to address risks and opportunities shall be proportionate to the potential impact on the conformity of products and services. Again, a lot of what's in here should be very familiar to many of you. Elements of preventive action, elements of production planning or process planning, all the things that you should already be doing under ISO 9001-2008. Risk, as I've said now a couple times, it borrows very heavily from the concept of preventive action. And this brings up a point that I want to very strongly emphasize. Preventive action as a section within the standard is going away. That's definitely not there anymore. But the ideas behind preventive action, the things that you are supposed to be doing under preventive action, those things are not going anywhere. Preventive action has been expanded into an idea of risk aversion that affects all the various areas of the system. I had a recent colleague who said that risk management in a way is preventive action on steroids, and I don't think that that is an incorrect summation of how this requirement is being viewed. Let's take a look at some key changes in terminology, some important things to bear in mind. The terms procedures, records, and documents have all been eliminated in favor of the phrase documented information. Now, the standard is trying to be more inclusive. They are trying to accept alternative approaches to some of these requirements. Again, it's about being more inclusive. Another key change is to the term product. It's now going to read products and services. Now again, those of you with some tenure in this process, you'll know that that's already been the case for some time. Clause 3 of ISO 9001-2008 states that wherever the term product appears, it can mean service. Again, this is about the standard pushing the idea of ISO 9001 as being applicable to multiple types of business, making it even more inclusive, those with and those without a tangible product. The term management responsibility has become leadership. Now this pushes the concept that management must lead by example and involvement rather than simply directing activities be performed. Continual improvement has become a larger section that is now called simply improvement. And the idea here is that continual improvement is not the only aspect of improvement that should be strived for in a quality system. We can have breakthroughs, we can have reactive changes, we can have reorganizations. All of those things add value to a quality system and should be recognized as improvement. And so that's what the standard is attempting to do with this change. Suppliers are now going to be referred to as external providers. That's intended to better accommodate service organizations, and again the whole idea of the standard being inclusive. Now let's talk a little bit about the elimination of required content. As I've alluded to, ISO 9001-2015 is not going to specifically require any of the following: a quality manual, a procedures manual, or work instructions. Now what this means theoretically, an organization could achieve its certification without those documents. However, the auditors that audit those companies are going to have to verify consistency with the standard itself, obviously. So as a result, the organization needs to be prepared to show consistent, effective processes for whatever activity is being reviewed. Now, if you can accomplish that without a procedures or quality manual, that's fine. One of the things about this that the standard is trying to recognize is that there are multiple ways to run a quality system. There's multiple ways to run a company, quite frankly. And to have mandated documented content doesn't add as much value as allowing a company to manage itself in the best way they know how, so long as the requirements are being upheld and fulfilled. The management representative is no longer mentioned in the ISO 9001:2015 standard. Now, all that means is that the responsibility is still very much there, but what this means is that that person's key functions are now on top management itself. And this is being done, among other reasons, because in practice, this is how many of the companies that are already certified, this is how they already do this. They approach the management of their system from a team perspective. It should not all be on one person, and oftentimes it is not all on one person. So the standard, again, is evolving to keep up with what has happened. Permissible exclusions has been removed from the ISO 9001:2015 standard. Now, for those of you that are perhaps design responsible, or maybe you don't have measuring equipment and so forth, you'll still be able to claim a non-applicable designation. What it means, though, is that the validity of those designations will be verified at each audit. Now, in practice, that's not all that different from how we approach permissible exclusions. Those are generally re-verified on a per audit basis anyhow. So not all that different in practice. Let's take a look at some key new questions that are posed by ISO 9001:2015 and how these things are going to be looked at on a company-by-company basis. As I said earlier, sections 1 through 3 are not specifically auditable. This is no change from before. In section 4, context of the organization, you're going to find a lot of the same content that was previously found in section 4 of ISO 9001:2008. It does ask some key new questions. What purpose does the organization serve, and who does it exist for? There's this whole idea of stakeholders that's been introduced by the new standard, and so that has to be addressed. Section 5, as I said, is called leadership. It uses some strong language that relates to top management's involvement in the system, and some key new questions that are asked here. Has management made itself accountable for the effectiveness or the lack of effectiveness of the quality system? Has management made sure that the policy, the objectives, are consistent with the strategic direction of the company? Has the quality management system been integrated into the business processes? The whole idea that, the way in which you manage your business and the way in which you manage your quality system, those two activities should not be mutually exclusive. Those two activities should very much complement each other and should be two parts of the same coin, so to speak, in terms of managing the company. Section 6 is called planning for the quality management system. Now, planning is being viewed in a whole new light, taking into account the idea of risk, which we dug into a little bit earlier in the presentation. And it asks some key questions. Have the risks been considered? Have actions been taken or planned for said risks? And with regards to quality objectives, it really pushes hard on the idea of accountability. Who's going to be responsible? What's the target date? What is supposed to be accomplished? Now, these are questions that we're already asking in relation to quality objectives under ISO 9001:2008, but we now have stronger verbiage, stronger language in the standard to support those questions. It kind of pulls together some of the ideas from 541 and 8.2.3, the monitoring of processes. Section 7, support. There are bits and pieces from 4 and 5, and a lot of Section 6 is in here. There is one slightly new area of content in Clause 716, which asks the following key question. Has the organization considered the changing needs and trends against its current competency base and determined what's going to be needed for the future. The whole idea of planning, and again, this goes back to risk management and managing the risks that are associated with a changing business climate, a changing playing field in terms of what's coming from your customers and what's coming from the industry. Now, in Section 8, as I said earlier, this is very similar to Section 7, product realization. We've done a careful review of the draft in Section 8, and there is no significant new content in Section 8 that hasn't already been present in some form in ISO 9001-2008. When you read through it, you will find it very much looks familiar. That's very much the case also in Section 9. One thing I'll mention about Section 9 is that this is now where management review is found. Management review has been kind of paired with internal audit and some of the other system monitoring activities. Again, not a whole lot of significant new content that hasn't already been present. And that can also be said for Section 10. Section 10 is essentially a carryover of the old ideas of continual improvement and corrective action. And again, no significant new content that hasn't already been present. Hopefully what you can see by this is that the overall changes to the 9001 standard are minimal. They're manageable. Even risk isn't so scary. If you consider that preventive action has been a part of ISO 9001 since it was first published. The average company should not have just a huge hill to climb in achieving the new requirements. Hopefully all of you are feeling better about that. So let's answer some key questions. Do we have to overhaul our system? Absolutely not. One of the goals of the TC 176 committee, one of the goals of the ISO, as I said earlier, is to improve the inclusiveness of the ISO 9001 standard. That is not going to be accomplished if 1 million worldwide registered firms have to overhaul their system. That doesn't sound inclusive to me, and I'm sure it doesn't sound inclusive to you. So go with an idea of if it works, keep it. If you have a quality manual that fits your business, if you have a quality manual that works for you and that is utilized, absolutely keep it. If the procedures that you have are effective, if they define your key processes, if they define how you operate and they're utilized, absolutely keep them. If you have an effective quality policy, if you have meaningful quality objectives, all of those things can be kept as is without significant revision. What we are recommending is that we begin with an overview of the new standard upon its publication. Now, as I said earlier, the draft standard is going to be out in, we're projecting in July next year, the final draft. The DIS is out now. Certainly those can be reviewed, but we're not recommending that aggressive changes to your system be pursued based on those documents. Wait until the actual standard is published, as we're projecting sometime in September of next year. Once you get your hands on the new standard, look for the gaps that exist within your current system, bearing in mind it's conceivable that there won't be any gaps within your system. If you have a highly mature ISO 9001-2008 system, it is entirely possible that that system will be able to continue as is with very minimal change. But if you do have gaps, obviously determine the strategies for those gaps, making sure that your existing documentation works for you first and foremost. We had a question that came up on our earlier webinar about renumbering the documentation. If renumbering the documentation enables it to work better for you, then by all means do so. but renumbering all of your documentation is not specifically going to be required to show compliance to the new standard. Obviously, the natural cycle of the audit process is going to be important as well. Auditors are going to be able to provide expert analyses of your system against the revised criteria. Your auditor is going to be a valuable resource in your transition process. PJR is going to continue to provide you with timely information during this transition process. As I've mentioned, the final published standard is likely going to bear some further revision to make sure that everybody is as satisfied as they can possibly be. We will definitely be providing updates as we get them. Definitely stay in touch with your auditor, stay in touch on our website, and look for updates. We're going to definitely be keeping all of you informed and aware of what is going on. That is the conclusion of my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the question bar here, and we'll see if we have any questions from our participants here. Okay, it would appear that we do not have any questions today. This presentation is going to be available on our website for download and for review. Okay, I beg your pardon, we do have a question here. Luis Oliveira, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, asks, no management rep is required, but the organization has to have one to lead management review, address and follow actions. How do you foresee this change in the industries? Louise, the way I'm seeing that playing out at present is I think it's fair to say that if a company has a point person, a primary person, that's going to be viewed favorably. That's completely fine. The only thing that is being promoted by the elimination of the term management representative is to further promote the idea that it needs to be a shared responsibility for managing the system, a shared responsibility for ensuring that the system is effective. So if the organizations nominate a point person, a key contact, that's not at all going to be an issue or run counter to the intention of the ISO with the revision of the requirement. Okay, okay, we've got some additional questions here. Okay, Marie Lawton asks, where have they embedded design? In addition, how can you audit leadership's accountability to the objectives? Two very good questions. Thank you, Marie. Design has been added to the operations section. I will attempt kind of on the fly here to give you an exact section number in just a moment. I will emphasize, however, in regards to your second question, in terms of management's accountability. Now again, this is going to be speculative on my part, but I will say that one of the ways in which we look for evidence of management's accountability is by management's participation. And we look to see, is management involved in the corrective action process, in the management review process? Is management participating and ensuring that things are being carried out when the objectives are not achieved? I don't foresee that changing dramatically under the new requirement. That is how I would project that we would look to see for accountability, is by way of participation and by showing leadership in responding to underperforming objectives. As to your first question, Marie, I do have a section number. Now this is from the draft standard and it may change, but design is to be found in section 8.3. Section 8.3 under the heading Operation. Okay, let's have a look. Wayne Huminick. Okay. Wayne asks, how is the new standard going to be linked with AS 9100? Wayne, the plan, as I understand it at present, is that it will be linked. AS9100 is going to be going through a bit of a change itself. I don't have a firm timeline. I do know that AS9100 is going to be updated into revision D, AS9100D, and that it will incorporate the new Annex SL ISO 9001 2015 content. Okay, Pareg Chef asks, can I brief a little bit more about Annex SL if possible? Pareg, what I can tell you about Annex SL is that it's a high-level document. I had a colleague who characterized it as kind of a skeleton structure, and that's a good way to view it. It's a series of sections, it's a series of section titles, and that's about all that it represents. And the idea is that it's going to be used for each of the ISO 9001, each of the ISO standards, and it's going to provide that framework. Now, the other thing that Annex SL gives us is the whole common definitions, common terms, terms like audit, terms like organization, terms like risk, and so forth. All of these things are going to be commonly defined and commonly understood. That's another very important idea that's promoted by Annex SL. So I do hope that I've answered your question satisfactorily. Okay, I'll hang in there for folks if there are any additional questions. I do want to thank everyone one final time for your attendance and for allowing PJR to present this information to you. Okay, I'll state one more time that the presentation is going to be available on our website, pjr.com. There'll be a link that you should be able to follow very shortly for downloading the presentation. We'll need just a little bit of time to get that up there for you. Okay, I'm seeing some thanks here. It's my pleasure to present this information. Okay, that concludes our presentation. Thank you all.